Well, thank you, Elaine, and thank you to the rest of you who have showed up to see this presentation, the title of which is, as you can see on this first screen here, Capturing Wildlife on Camera at Nourse Tree Farm, and some things I learned along the way. So we've had a run of pink salmon humpies that have been coming up our creek, Pilchuck Creek right near us, and they only come up every other year. And we like to go down and just watch them come in. This is a picture that was taken in 2009 on an old point and shoot digital camera, and camera quality has come a long ways and since then. If I get the next picture to come up here. And then one winter we had a bunch of salmon come across our field, and you can see that my daughter Jen is just really excited here to see these fish and to be holding them up. I said, Jen, hold them up, and she was really excited to do that, as you can see here. And this is what led us to do our salmon restoration, seeing all these dead fish in our field. And after we did our restoration project, this last year I was able to walk out onto the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge no less. And now with my cell phone, whoops, go back here, shoot this video. And it's amazing the quality of video that you can get on a cell phone. Not as good as the pictures, but still really darn good quality. I did this again, these are shots that I took just standing on our bridge of the fish as they go under, just went underneath the bridge. And then this was just this last winter. And then this past spring, we had a whole bunch of little guys like this. This fish is about an inch long. Again, cell phone video here. And then this past summer, the one that's creek dried up to all but a trickle, we had hundreds of these guys. This is just an amazing, this doesn't really do it justice. All the fish that we had this summer in our stream. Again, cell phone video, it's really amazing the kind of quality you can get just with cell phone. And then you don't see wildlife, but occasionally we are able to get a picture of a deer going across the road. I like to call this, this is a deer that my wife Dar, the retired school teacher, taught how to read so they didn't know where to cross the road without getting hurt. Now, cell phones do not do very well at long distance. However, there's some tricks you can do to take long distance telephoto pictures. It was Ken Bevis that showed me this one. If you get a spotting scope, I have a small scope myself, but some people have some really good spotting scopes that you can take. You can just put the cell phone camera right up to the spotting scope. And here you can see picture. You can just see right here the bat box in the cell phone, and then this is the final picture. You can see that it's quite a bit closer here now, using the spotting scope as a telephoto lens for the cell phone. Now, we've always had wildlife on our property, and we'd had signs of it. But here's, especially at cherry season, we can tell there have been bear, and they tell us they've been there when they leave their droppings. And then one year, Dar bought me my first wildlife camera, and so this was the first bear picture we got. We've gotten quite a few bear pictures since then, and we've had lots of other pictures of wildlife. The first camera we had wasn't very good quality, and you can see right here, this coyote here is kind of fuzzy. It's an older camera. The quality of cameras has improved since 2014. This is a little bit better picture from just a couple of years ago. Here's a nice deer picture. Deer going across the river. Red-tailed hawk. We set out some apple mash after making some cider, and they attracted mice, and so that attracted the hawk, and also an owl was after the mice. Now, when you have a camera, you want to use either a tree mount, a screw mount, or a T-post mount. The cameras come with straps to mount them to trees, but you can't control the directions of the camera very well. I highly recommend getting one of these mounts. Here you can see the a camera set on a screw mount. This screw mount is screwed into the tree, and that way it allows you to tilt the camera directed in different directions. Here's a camera on a T-post. I always use T-posts when I am trying to get pictures of beavers. It's so that I don't put them on the trees for fear that the beaver might chew the tree down. Now, when you set a camera up on a trail, I've discovered that you want to have the field of view at an angle. So let's say like about a 45-degree angle to the trail, or pointing, or if the trail makes a curve, let's go back here. So that the trail kind of runs along the field of view of the camera. And at a minimum, you want to have it so that it takes several snapshots at a time, so that you don't get this shot, but rather that you get this shot instead. Otherwise, that way you've got the whole animal there. And here again, the camera is set up so that it's diagonal to in this case, the road. And here's a series of 5 shots that the camera took. And you can see, well, they're just walking by. All the shots are quite nice there. Now this is another one. Here again, the camera is set up fairly low to the ground. I've also found that the lower you set the camera to the ground, the better in terms of getting good wildlife shots. Now, sometimes the weeds get in the way and you have to raise it up a little bit. But here, this bear is just really mad. He's looking over there at something. He's just really angry at something. And in this second shot, he's still mad. And now finally, as he comes by the camera, he's starting to cool down a little bit. Now, not all cameras have the same field of view width. Some cameras are wider than others, and there might be reasons for having different field of view widths in different situations. In this case, with wider field of view, when it makes things look farther away. Now, this deer is only 30 feet away from the camera, but because this particular camera has a very wide field of view, you can see lots of scenery around it, but it doesn't do a very good job of getting in on the animal itself if they're out toward the edge of the range. This is another camera with a narrower field of view set up at the exact same location. And you can see that the deer, which is about the same distance as that other one, it shows up a lot better in the picture. Now here is a picture of a beaver dam, again with a fairly narrow field of view. And then a little bit later in the year, I wanted to have a wider field of view at this location so that I could get pictures of animals coming down a trail and then going across the dam. Now, that other field of view where the mergansers were was just right in here. So you can see the different cameras have different fields of view, and they have they can be used at different locations depending on what your setup and what your desires are. Now, there's a website called trailcampro.com. Now, they do nothing but sell wildlife cameras, and they also test them. I'm not going to necessarily recommend them, but you can go to them, and they've got all different kinds of reviews of cameras, and they'll tell you all about each different one. Now, I have to say, though, they didn't tell me on there, or at least where I was looking, what the field of view was on each of these cameras. That would be something I wish they would put up. Now, a lot of the cameras can be set up so that they will do a series of still shots followed by a video. Now, this is a series of still shots of the camera. And now the next one here. Now, here's the video that was taken after those still shots. These are just all taken right in a row at this same time on June 21st, 2020. Now, if you want to have good, crisp pictures, a still shot will give you that generally, and the video that shows a little bit more action. Now, when you buy a camera, they will say that it'll take a 9 megapixel picture as its best and highest quality. Don't believe it. Typically, on a wildlife camera, your camera will not be any better, your picture will not be any better quality than either the lowest or the second lowest quality that they show on the setup. So we're going to zoom in here on this picture. As we zoom in here, you can see some individual pixels. And as we zoom in tighter, now, if the camera is at its lowest setting, you will see these are the individual pixels. And then typically what they will do for the higher number of megabytes in a picture is they will just divide those individual pixels into 4 or 9. So this picture, the second shot here, though it isn't any better quality than this picture just takes up more space, but doesn't have any better quality. But what I do when I'm doing a presentation like this, even the smallest size of picture that comes on the camera is a bit more than I need. And this is the one area where I'm going to get a little bit technical. I use a freeware program called IrfanView, which you can download. Again, it's a shareware program to resize my pictures. When I do presentations, I resize them so that they are no more than 1,000 bytes, 1,000 pixels across the bottom. So you can see here, I want to resize them here. So this is the picture as it came out of the camera at 1.59 megabytes. This is that same picture as I've now reduced it to that 1,000 pixels across the bottom. If you're just going to show something on a screen or have it on your computer, this is perfectly fine. Now, if you want to print something, you want to have the higher quality. If you want to print it to paper, because the process of going to paper will make it lose some resolution. But here again, here's that high resolution picture, or the higher resolution. This is actually the lowest resolution on my camera. And then how I reduced it just for this presentation. Now, if I go smaller than that, say 220 kilobytes, then it does start getting fuzzy. You can see this is that same picture. When I get down to this here, this is only 640 across the bottom. It's a little bit fuzzier now. I don't generally do that on any of my pictures. Now, lately, I've been going to more and more video and video only, just because it shows more action. Here we can see here's a beaver. And in doing that, I like to set my cameras up so that they either have 10 or 15-second shots. If you go longer than that, what'll happen is that the animal will go out of the screen and you've got 20 seconds, 10 or 20 seconds of just nothing. And it takes forever then to go through each of your shots, each of your little clips. Now this is a clip of a bear. I had this camera set up at just 5 seconds. I really wish I had had this one set up to be 10 seconds or more so I could see what the bear was doing after he got up to its full height there. Now, another thing, if you're set up on a feeding station, you want to have a delay between when your camera takes pictures. Otherwise, you'll just get thousands and thousands of pictures of the same thing over and over and over as whatever animal is there just eating, licking the salt or eating whatever you're feeding it. But if you're out on a trail, then you want to have, and in this case, I'm shooting video, you want to have a minimal amount of time between the shots. And the camera settings will generally allow you to do this. Here's about a 10 or 15 second shot. And then it comes over here, and now it's going to end. We're still got the deer here. This is about a 15-second sequence. And then it stopped. And I had this camera set up so that there was a 1 second lapse between when that 15-second clip ended and this one started. That way I didn't miss the animals going across, and there's not much break in the continuity. Now, if I were doing a big long presentation for the Disney Channel or something, I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be going to a lot more effort. But here on this next sequence here, what I've done is I've spliced these two together. This is those same two clips that we just saw. Here's a deer coming in for the first time. And pretty soon you'll see he's going to just jump ever so when he gets to about right here. There's a slight jump there. that was the delay between the first clip and the second clip. And that way I get more a continuous motion, but still see the deer going across the trail there. Now that I've gone to doing more videos, I wanted to do some editing and join them together or whatnot. And I found this is a really nice program. It's a shareware program called Open Shot Video Editor. You can download it for free. And it's amazing. It's pretty sophisticated. Not as much. Now, I'm not going to be making something to go on television where I'd get paid for it, but it's for an amateur use. This is really a good little program, and I highly recommend it. Now, last spring, over the course of about 3 or 4 weeks, I had a camera set up. Again, this is one of those wide-angle cameras set up at one location at the end of the road, up the top of the hill. And over the course of that 3 weeks, I could see the weeds growing up. And then the deer came and ate it. So, well, I could put that together in a video. And then another thing I was able to do is splice together. This is some mergansers that we'd never seen mergansers before until they came to, whoops, I'll go back here. I didn't mean to do that. I'll go back. Let's do this. Come on. This is at one of our beaver dams. Oh no. Phew, made it. I was able to splice that together with my video camera. Or in this case, a few years ago, these two young bucks decided that they wanted to just play in front or have a mock battle in front of one of our cameras for, it was about 1.5 minutes. So I was able to splice together these still shots from that. There were 30 seconds in between each of those groups of 5. Now in this shot, this is the shot that I actually ended up using in that music video I did of Ken Beva singing his bear song. This is the original footage of the bear clip here. This is the original footage. Again, it's a wide angle thing. And then when I put it in the video editor, I was able to pan and zoom through it to get this shot. And here you can see this is a lot more dynamic because I was able to pan through it and zoom in on that little guy and then watch him as he then went off and joined its mama going out the trail at the far end over there. A lot more dynamic picture that way. Now here's some coyotes from the summer before last, a family of coyotes. Again, Dar, being the retired school teacher, said, kindergarten coyotes, because here they are, all the babies are just lined up in a row, straight line going down the hallway or the trail in this case. Whoops, back, whoops, come on. And she was busy. Another day she came by with, this is in the morning, about 8 o'clock. This was about 12 o'clock noon. And this was about 4 o'clock that same afternoon as she brought food to him. Then on another day, they just decided to have a romp, family romp, right in front of one of the cameras. Now this sow, and I know it's a sow because this is her cub. came right over to the camera and then pushed the camera over. The next 1,000 shots from this camera were of the clouds going by in the sky. And then this spring, the next year, I'm pretty sure this is the cub because it's amazing what cubs learn from their mamas. He came right over to the camera and did the same thing to it, only he pushed it down instead of pushing it up. But bear cubs aren't the only ones we have to worry about with our cameras. I like to call this my space alien shot. Now, as I learned the hard way, don't leave your camera upside down like this because the batteries generally go in on the bottom, and when it rains, the water will get into them and it'll ruin the camera. I continue to be amazed at how different the individual bears are from one another. This poor old guy has been through the war. Here's a fairly healthy looking specimen. And this guy is just the most amazing animal. But notice that really dense, short fur and how buff this guy is. Just an amazing creature. This is a sequence I like to call Desperately Seeking Goldilocks. You've probably seen these pictures before. Now here's the real wild animals. I was pretty sure I'd seen this one before, a picture like this before. Yep, I had. Here's that same critter this spring. This is a really interesting shot. This is a video here. This is a really interesting clip. A couple of owls. When I was there the other day, I heard these guys hooting. Almost camouflaged here. Again, this is our older camera, just not very good quality, just the slightest movement, just a little bit out of focus here. This is the only picture of a cougar we've ever gotten. It's the only one. And haven't seen him otherwise. This is a nice shot, but terrible colors to the shot. Nice pose to that deer there, but terrible colors in the picture. Better. Now this is a camera that I probably have too high off the ground, and all you get are the antlers. Again, it's a sequence that I'm going to play this one again when it gets through here. Again, this was a sequence where I had the camera set up to take 3 or 4 pictures as stills and then a video shot following it, and then a break of several seconds. And sometimes the light is just right. Now, when you change the batteries in your camera, make sure you check the date set up, as this picture and this picture were taken within a couple days of each other. Only when I changed the batteries out, that reset the camera date to the initial setting. Here's a nice pose. And so that's about all I have. So I guess now is the time for questions and whatnot. If any of you want to contact me or come by and have a tour, like I like to say, we can give you the tour, and you can even go across the Golden Gate Bridge without paying a toll.
So, David, can you hear me?
Yes.
What's your favorite camera right now to buy?
You know, let's see. There's I don't know. There's one that's what was it? A Bushnell? There's a Bushnell model that I seem to be like most of the way. That wing dome was the really wide one, and for a long time I didn't like it. Let's go back. Let's go back one slide here. Oh, come on. This is again that wide angle camera that I had up at the end of the road that I got that deer, that bear video with, that was really wide angle. And this is that same camera. And in some instances, this is a really great camera to have. It's also the one that I set up on the Beaver Dam so that I can catch the trail coming across. But if you want to get pictures, good quality pictures, you don't want one that's quite this wide angle, because this deer is basically right on top of the camera, which makes its ears look really wide, really big relative to the rest of its body.
You're happy with the Bushnells mostly?
Yeah, and then there's yeah, they've been pretty good. And what's the other one? There's an inexpensive one. God, I forget the name of them right now.
Okay, while you're thinking of that, David, Martha had a question. How long do the batteries seem to last?
Oh, they'll take several thousand shots, a couple depending on the cameras. Some cameras last longer. There's some cameras only take 6 batteries, others takes up to a dozen. The ones that take up to a dozen will generally last longer, and before you have to change out the batteries, but then you've got to change out a whole lot more batteries. And I saw Ken Miller's question there. Do I have problems with people stealing my cameras? And yes, I do, or I used to, at least I used to. We don't get as much traffic onto our property now that it's blocked off, and a house was built right in the middle of the road that used to come onto the upper part of our property. But on a number of my cameras, especially up toward the end of the road where I don't get up to very often and where I can't service them very well, I cable them down. You can buy cables, but even there with wire cutters, they could take them away.
So you have a couple more questions, and then you have a couple questions here. I have a person that's sitting in the back, and he says, can you, the 1,000 pictures, I guess you don't really, do you check them once a week? You check them every 3 days? How do you know?
In my own, it used to be I check them more often than I do now. I might let a camera go as long as even a month before I pick it up, or actually what I do is they have chips. They have the ScanDisk chips that go in and out. If I have 6 cameras set out, I'll have a dozen chips, and so 6 will be in the camera, and I'll just switch them out and take the chips home and look at them. And anymore, I'll look through them real fast while they're on the chip and take off the one or two that I might be excited about, and then discard the rest of them. But that is the hardest part of it. It's just that hours and hours it takes to go through the pictures, and especially the videos. If you've got 110-second videos, that's 600 seconds. That's several minutes of watching videos. And if you've got 1,000 of them, it takes quite a while to go through them, which is why I like to keep them short, 10 or 15 seconds, so that you can go through them and get rid of them, rather than if you have a 30-second video, it just takes that much longer to get through them. And most of that will be just blank, nothing on there but weeds in the background. And that is a problem a lot of times. With a lot of my cameras, you don't have them set right at times, and you'll get lots of pictures of just bushes waving in the background. And there are settings on the camera that you can use to filter some of that out.
So there's a couple more questions in the chat. There was one from Steve, and about, do you feel like the animals notice the camera? And we had that question too. It's like, why aren't they afraid of that light at night?
Some of them are. The coyotes are more than others. There are some cameras come in with a light that you can actually see, and others are more invisible. You can see, they'll describe that in the camera specifications as to the kind of light that it puts out during the nighttime, and some put out more light than others. And yes, the coyotes especially are spooked by the light that comes out of the cameras. You may have noticed there was 2 shots at night there where the camera just snuck away real fast, just jumped away. That was because he looked at the light that was coming out of the camera and then ran away from it.
And then Ken had a question about direction, pointing the cameras to avoid the sun glare. Is it like taking a picture? You make sure you're pointing away from the sun?
That if you have the camera on some of our cameras, that is a problem. And yes, and I didn't show you any pictures where there were sunlight shining directly into the cameras, but I do get those. But then as the day passes, then the sun will go out of view of the camera. So if I've got a camera that's pointing due east, the sun will shine on it, and then after a while, it'll be out of the view of the camera. Likewise, at sunset, I've got cameras pointing to the west. You get pictures all during the day, and then at nighttime, or as the sun is setting, there might be sun in the cameras, and so yeah, that is a problem. So I tend to point my cameras in the direction that I think is best suited for the direction on the trail, without leaving the sun out of it.
I had you said in one of these shots, you said that you had the camera too high. What is too high? Like 5 feet off the ground, 4 feet off?
That one was that particular camera was only about 3.5 feet off the ground. Let's go back. So now this camera right here, this camera was about 3.5 feet off the ground at most. But deer actually aren't that big. You know, they're not like elk or moose that are 6 feet off the ground. And bear are the same way. If this camera had been a foot lower, it would have had a better shot of this deer.
And so you said they don't tell you, like when you're looking to buy a camera, they don't tell you if it's a wide angle or a narrow angle?
I have to confess I didn't see that. Now, mind you, I'm not the one that buys the cameras. My wife, Dara, says, "Hey, Dave, try this one." And she just buys me a camera. So we've got probably half a dozen of them that we've had now. And then they wear out, or they get wet, or and so then, well, why don't we try one of these over here? And I have to confess, we haven't looked too much at the specs of the things. If you find that they do show what the field of view is, that would be a good thing to keep track of. I can tell you that wing home one was one that was really a wide angle, and most of the Bushnells are fairly narrow and more, not really telescopic, but a nice, fairly wide fairly good depth of field.
What was the wide angle one again?
It was called a wing home.
Wing home?
Yeah. This is this camera here is a Moultrie, Moultrie, which I got because a friend had some pretty good pictures that she got off of one, and I asked her what kind it was. But I have to say that I wasn't all that pleased with it. Here's that Bushnell. That again, this is what I shot with the Bushnell. With this, that coyote again.
Oh.
Let's go back in here. Now this is that wing home one with the really wide. Let's see how this is that. And let's see what is the camera that is it? Oh, that with this is they have the little deer with the buck and a doe inside of it. I forget the brand that this is. I'm having a senior moment. They're fairly inexpensive cameras, but they take fairly good pictures anymore these days too. Though the earlier versions of this camera did not. I just can't for the life of me remember what the brand is.
And then we have one more question from Ken. The average price today for an average decent trail camera? Sounds like
Oh,
my,
150 bucks. 130 to well, you should be able to get a decent camera for less than $200.
How do you set them up so that you keep the motion of the vegetation out of the picture?
That can be a problem. Some cameras have settings where you've got there'll be a setting and you go through them and they'll be sensitive, normal, and then less sensitive. And the less sensitive you have, it takes more animal motion and less bushes to have them go off. But one thing you do want to make sure of in any event is that all of the weeds that are within 5 or 6 feet of the camera have been clipped off at the ground. A, so that they're not in the way of the camera, and B, so that they're not wiggling back and forth, causing the camera to go off.
we have a couple more questions about the typical lifespan you can get from your cameras.
Now I leave mine out year round, rain or shine. And I have some that I've had for 3 or 4 years. Others don't seem to last as long. They get moisture in them and tend to wear out. If you take them down in the wintertime, I think they'll last longer.
How often do you change the batteries?
How often?
Yeah,
Well,
typical on average.
a couple thousand shots. They'll tell you the videos, if you're shooting videos, they won't last as long. You'll be able to, in some locations, the camera will be there all summer because you won't have hardly any animals going by it. And in other places, you'll be going through a set of batteries every month. Again, it's just how much activity is in front of the camera. And they all have, the battery will run out, and you'll take the chip home, and then you'll see, oh, gee, I didn't get as many pictures on this one as I should have. And you go back, and sure enough, your battery is dead. So that way, in that case, then I would have gone back to that camera a little bit sooner than otherwise.
Do the batteries last a week or a month or what?
Oh, a couple of months typically.
Okay.
I see Ken's asking a question there. Do we catch trespassers? And yes, we do all the time. Not that it does as much good, because people are just coming on. I imagine Ken has quite a few trespassers at his place there, especially being right next to the state park like he is. In our case, what we had was when we did our logging in 2015, the logging road came through a neighbor's property, which is directly adjacent to the Stanwood Bryant Road, which is a major arterial east-west in North Snohomish County. And there wasn't any control of the access at that end. And so just like people coming in from a state park or anything, people would just come off the road there all the time and wandered through and left garbage and stole cameras and did whatnot. But since that time, that particular parcel of land has been sold and a house has been built on it, and now we don't get near the traffic that we did.
This is Ken Miller. I get about 6 months on my trail camera, and it's pointed at a stump where I get a lot of people coming in from the local community going by, and 6 months is pretty average.
What kind of camera do you have, Ken?
Damn if I know.
I have a lot of those too.
Yeah, the biggest problem I had is you mentioned getting the damn thing set back on the timestamp or the calendar, because I enjoy getting that part of the story, and it's like anything, you got to do it about 15 times before you finally figure out how to work it. But hopefully they're getting a little simpler, but I suspect with all the extra features and stuff, it gets more complicated. But
Yeah, some are easier to set up than others, though. Once you've learned how to do one, you can follow pretty much the same routine on the others.
I've got mine set up above. I need a ladder to get it. It keeps it from getting stolen. And but I want to get some more. I'm just getting pictures of people going, and some deer and coyotes and stuff. But I need to get a camera set up out in the woods so I get a little more wildlife pictures.
Now, this particular shot here of the coyote staring right at the camera is about 18 inches off the ground at most. And so here you can see we're right eye to eye with the coyote here. It's perfect height.
I know Howard Wilson is, because he's monitoring bear damage all the time. I think he's gone to some that somehow or another send you the pictures back.
Yes, those are more expensive.
Tried those or not?
Those are more expensive. You have to put a SIM chip in them and basically it's like having a cell phone on your property.
Have you tried those?
I have not. I'm too cheap.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
There was a question about, do you use the SD card reader to look at the stuff in the field, or do you just take them home?
I just take them home. And look at them afterwards. Or either that, or if we're going to have company at our place, I'll take my laptop down to our tree farm and we'll make a hike and go out and pick up a bunch of chips, and we'll come in and just share them with everybody as right there at our picnic shelter.
Well, if there aren't any more questions for Dave, I just want to really thank you. I learned a lot. I took some notes, and I'm like, okay, time to do a little bit more shopping.